In the history of TV talent shows, you get voices you hear, and then you get voices you feel. The kind of voice that carries the weight of a life lived, the gravel of 1,000 stories, and the soul of a true artist. Back in 2019, one of those voices echoed across the America's Got Talent stage. It belonged to a man who looked more like a road-worn Viking than a pop star, a gentle giant from the forests of Sweden. His name was Chris Kläfford, and his voice captivated millions. With his raw emotional power and a guitar in his hands, he seemed destined for the finals, a shoo-in for the grand prize. He was the rugged Swedish singer who felt like a once-in-a-generation discovery. But in a stunning turn of events, he was sent home. In an elimination that shocked viewers and left the judges divided, the man with the unforgettable voice was suddenly gone. After the AGT spotlight faded and the applause went silent, millions of fans were left asking the same question. What really happened to Chris Kläfford? The answer isn't what you think. This isn't a story about a star who faded away. It's a story about a fire that was never put out. While America may have moved on, his home country was waiting to turn him into a national treasure. This is the untold story of what Chris Kläfford did next, a journey of resilience, incredible success, and the secret he was keeping from the world all along. It was the audition that stopped America in its tracks. A man, 30 years old at the time, walked onto the AGT stage, looking humbled by the scale of it all. He was Chris Kläfford from the small community of Ramsburg, Sweden, and he carried with him an air of quiet authenticity. He told the judges he'd been a musician for years, playing small gigs, just trying to make a living from his passion. There was a nervousness to him, but under it, a real sense of purpose. And then, he sang. He chose a song the entire world knew, John Lennon's Imagine. It's so iconic, so sacred, that covering it is a huge risk. A lesser artist would be swallowed whole. But Chris didn't just cover it, he reclaimed it. The first note that came out was pure, unadulterated soul. Raspy, broken, and beautiful all at once. The familiar lyrics sounded like they were being written for the first time, each word etched with a profound, personal meaning. The room was immediately spellbound. The camera panned across the faces of the audience, mouths agape. The judges were frozen, leaning in, witnessing something special. This wasn't just a performance. It was a confession. It was the sound of a man who had lived and breathed music, his entire life, pouring every bit of that experience into 3 minutes of television. His performance of Imagine would go on to become one of the most viewed videos on his YouTube channel, a testament to its immediate and lasting impact. When he finished, a wave of stunned silence washed over the auditorium before erupting into a roaring standing ovation. The judges were floored. Howie Mandel told him, "You wore your heart on your sleeve, it was amazing." Gabrielle Union was blown away, and Julianne Hough praised his passion, saying, "That's what art is." And then there was Simon Cowell, the notoriously hard to please industry titan. Simon looked at Chris and said, with genuine admiration, "I love people who can reinterpret a song. You did something special with it, it was incredible." With 4 emphatic yeses, Chris Kläfford's American dream had begun. In that moment, he wasn't just another contestant. He was the contestant, the front-runner, the one to beat. He had the voice, the story, and the emotional connection that can make legends on shows like AGT. That first audition wasn't a fluke. As Chris Kläfford moved through the 14th season of America's Got Talent, he built a reputation as the show's most compelling and authentic musical force. Each performance was another chapter in his story, a deeper look into the heart of the artist America was falling for. He wasn't interested in becoming a polished pop product. He leaned into what made him unique, his gritty, whiskey-soaked vocals and his knack for turning well-known songs into deeply personal anthems. But then, in the Judge Cuts round, Chris did something even bolder. He performed an original song. This is often a huge gamble on talent shows, where familiarity is king. The song was called Something Like Me, which he explained was about being judged for your appearance and not fitting into a conventional mold. The gamble paid off. Guest judge Brad Paisley was visibly impressed, telling him, "You're something else." But the biggest validation came from Simon Cowell, who admitted that the original song changed everything for him. Simon told him, "The song actually enabled us to learn more about you, ... It wasn't a risk. A risk would have been not doing that." Chris had proven he wasn't just a great voice. He was a true artist with something to say. He carried that momentum into the quarterfinals, delivering a powerful performance of another original song, Cold at the Altar. By this point, a clear narrative had formed. Chris Kläfford was the season's resident soulman, the authentic musician in a sea of spectacle. He was the artist everyone was rooting for, the kind of talent AGT was made to discover. He advanced to the semifinals, seemingly unstoppable. For that crucial round, he performed a deeply emotional reprise of John Lennon's Imagine. He stood on the stage, bathed in spotlights, having given another piece of himself to the millions watching. He had done everything right. He'd been vulnerable, powerful, and consistently brilliant. His spot in the finals felt like a sure thing, But television, like life, is rarely so predictable. The night of the semifinal results was thick with tension. Chris Kläfford, a fan favorite all season, stood on the stage waiting for his fate. As host Terry Crews read the results, a sense of confusion rippled through the audience. Chris's name remained uncalled. It all came down to the Duncan save. Chris was in the bottom three, alongside the Detroit Youth Choir and the young magician, E-Man Bay. It was an outcome no one saw coming. How could the man with the voice that captivated a nation be on the brink of going home? The live vote saved the Detroit Youth Choir, and a cold dread set in for Chris's fans. His fate was now in the hands of the judges. It was down to him and E-Man Baisha. The judges were visibly torn. Gabrielle Union voted for Chris, and Julianne Hough chose Iman. With the vote tied, Howie Mandel, who had championed Chris from the start, looked pained but ultimately cast his vote for E-Man. The deciding vote fell to Simon Cowell, who also chose E-Man, making the decision official. Just like that, it was over. Chris Kläfford, the man many believed could win the whole thing, was eliminated from America's Got Talent. The reaction was immediate and intense. The internet exploded with shock and outrage. Fans were floored. The #AGT hashtag was flooded, with comments calling it a robbery, the biggest mistake of the season. How could a voice so raw and authentic be sent home? For millions of American viewers, the story ended right there. The cameras turned off, the spotlight moved on, and Chris Kläfford vanished from their screens. It's a familiar story in reality TV. A bright star burns for a few weeks and then, seemingly, disappears forever. But what really happened to Chris Kläfford? The answer is far more incredible than his elimination was shocking. To understand what happened after AGT, you have to know the secret that was largely hidden from American fans. The story on AGT was of a humble, struggling musician from a small town getting his big break. While he was definitely humble, in his hometown of Ramsburg is indeed small, the idea that he was an unknown was far from the truth. In fact, Chris Kläfford was already a star. His real breakthrough came in 2017, 2 full years before he introduced himself to America. That year, Chris auditioned for Swedish Idol, and just like on AGT, he captivated the nation from his very first performance, singing the exact same song, John Lennon's Imagine. His audition became a sensation. Week after week, he delivered powerful, soulful performances, earning a massive following. In December 2017, Chris Kläfford was crowned the winner of Swedish Idol. What followed wasn't a quiet return home. It was a career explosion. He landed a record deal with Universal Music AB and released his winner's single, Treading Water, which soared up the charts. In a single year, he had 3 top 5 singles on Swedish national radio, and his music racked up over 35 million streams, earning him platinum sales. The success translated to the stage. In the summer of 2018, the year before AGT, Chris embarked on a massive 50-show tour across Sweden, playing 2 sold-out crowds. But perhaps the most stunning detail of all is what he was doing right before and during his time on AGT in 2019. Chris was the special guest and opening act for the legendary Swedish rock band, Gyllene Tider, on their massive farewell tour. This was the equivalent of an American artist opening for the Eagles or Bruce Springsteen. It was a monumental honor, so when Chris Kläfford walked onto the America's Got Talent stage, he wasn't a struggling artist hoping for a lucky break. He was a seasoned professional, a national champion, and a platinum-selling recording artist. The struggling artist narrative made for great TV. But it overlooked the incredible success story that was already well underway. He wasn't on AGT because he needed to be discovered. He was there to introduce his music to the world, and his elimination wasn't an NDIT, was just the closing of one chapter and the dramatic reopening of another. When Chris Kläfford was eliminated from AGT, it wasn't a walk of shame into the shadows. It was a triumphant return to a kingdom that was already his. He didn't come home to commiserate. He came home a conquering hero, now armed with a global audience. The AGT journey, which looked like a devastating loss, was actually a brilliant strategic victory. It served as a massive international launchpad, amplifying his Swedish fame on a global scale. He made a smart move. Instead of getting lost in the competitive American music industry, he went back to the market where he was already a star, and leveraged his new international exposure to get even bigger. The Gyllene Tider farewell tour became his victory lap. He spent the summer of 2019 playing in massive venues across Sweden, standing in front of enormous crowds who adored him. He was no longer just the guy who won Swedish Idol. He was Chris Kläfford, the guy who wowed America. This tour rocketed him into a new stratosphere of stardom in his home country. He wasn't vanishing, he was thriving, just on a different continent. The years after AGT weren't silent. They were filled with new music and touring. He continued to release a steady stream of singles, keeping his voice on the radio, while he maintained his relationship with Universal Music for several releases. He also took more control of his artistic destiny by founding his own record label, Oxford Records. It was a clear signal of his evolution from a talent show star to the CEO of his own career. He even secured a distribution deal with Universal, giving him the creative freedom of his own label backed by the power of a major player. His touring schedule has remained relentless. He has crisscrossed Sweden and made significant inroads into the rest of Europe, especially Germany, where his soulful brand of rock and folk music found a passionate audience. The man who seemed to disappear from the American spotlight was actually selling out venues and building a sustainable, long-term career as a respected international artist. And he was doing it all on his own terms. It's an incredible journey of turning a perceived public setback into a massive private victory. If you're enjoying this untold story and want more updates on your favorite talent show artists, proving that the end of the show is often just the beginning, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss where we go next. The years since Chris Kläfford supposedly disappeared have actually been the most artistically fertile and successful of his career. He has brilliantly flipped a viral TV moment into a durable, long-term career, and his musical output in the 2020s shows an artist in a constant state of evolution. This period of growth culminated in 2 major album releases. In March 2023, he released his official debut full-length album, Maybe It's Just Me. This was a deeply personal collection of songs, recorded at the legendary Atlantis studio in Stockholm, the same hallowed space where giants like ABBA crafted their hits. The album was a cohesive statement, filled with the kind of heartfelt storytelling that had become his trademark, and it further cemented his status as a serious album artist. But an even bigger statement arrived in February 2025 with his second full-length album, What I'm Running From. For this project, he traveled to Nashville, the heartland of Americana music, to write and record. The result is an album that finds him fully embracing a country and alternative country sound, a natural home for his storytelling and raw, earthy voice. In his own words about the album, Chris said, "I've finally found my home in a genre that truly feels like mine, where stories are allowed to breathe, emotions are allowed to take place, and music is allowed to truly live. This album is very special to me." The album, released on his own Oxford Records label, is a triumph of authenticity. Singles like the introspective Small Town Ghost and the resonant I Envy the Earth showcase his powerful songwriting and a voice that has only grown richer with time. He's not just making music, he's crafting a legacy. As for his personal life, Chris has largely kept the focus on his work and family. For many years, he was in a long-term relationship with his partner, Bob Linger. More recent social media activity in 2024 has led to fan speculation about his relationship status. But he has kept his private life largely private, allowing the focus to remain where he wants it, on the music. He remains grounded in his Swedish roots, a family man who just happens to be an international rock star. So, what does the future hold for Chris Kläfford? If the past is any indication, it holds a lot more music and a lot more miles on the road. The release of his 2025 album, What I'm Running From, was not an endpoint, but the start of a new era. It was immediately followed by the announcement of the Long Way Tour, with dates scheduled across Sweden and extending into Germany and the Netherlands. Throughout 2025 and into 2026, his focus remains on bringing his music directly to the people who support him. He is, at his core, a touring musician, and his schedule reflects a man energized by live performance. The question many American fans still ask is, will he ever return to tour the United States? While his main focus is his growing European fan base, the success of his Nashville recorded album and his strong digital footprint mean a return to the American stage is always a possibility. He shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. He is an artist in his prime, in full control of his career, his label, and his sound. The journey is far from over. In fact, it feels like he's just getting started. So, what really happened to Chris Kläfford, the Swedish singer with the voice that echoed around the world from the AGT stage? He didn't disappear, he didn't fade away. He wasn't a victim of the unforgiving reality TV machine. Instead, he executed one of the most successful post-show pivots in recent memory. He took the global exposure from AGT, combined it with the superstar status he had already achieved at home, and built an independent, sustainable, and creatively fulfilling international career. He went home, and in the process, he became bigger and more successful than ever. His story is a powerful testament to talent, resilience, and the wisdom of staying true to your roots while reaching for the sky. He proved that an elimination isn't a failure, it's just a redirection. For Chris Kläfford, the end of his AGT road was simply the beginning of a highway with no speed limit. What was your favorite Chris Kläfford performance? Was it his iconic Imagine audition, his original song Something Like Me, or a track from one of his new albums? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And for more untold stories about where your favorite artists are now, don't forget to subscribe.